I'm Sarah Reiterband, and I am calling the meeting of the Mpo Policy Committee for May 14th, 2021 to order. I'm Vice Chair of the Mpo and will be taking the helm today because our fearless leader is vacationing. So we will go around and introduce ourselves. Do you want to just kind of go through your list there so that makes it a little easier for people?
Sure, I can do that. Sarah, you introduced yourself. So Margaret Clemens?
Yes, my name is Margaret Clemens, and I am president of the Monroe County Plan Commission. I'm vice president of the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation. I'm vice president of the Monroe County Board of Zoning Appeals, and I also serve on the East Monroe Water Corporation's Board of Directors.
Okay, then Pam Samples.
I'm Pamela Samples. I'm on the Ellisville Town Council, and I'm also on the planning in Ellisville.
Okay, thank you. Then we have Nate Nickel.
Hi all, Nate Nickel with the City of Bloomington Public Works Department.
And then Chris Wallman.
Hello, Chris Wallman, Seymour District NDOT.
Then Scott Robinson.
Robinson, Director for Planning and Transportation, City of Bloomington. I'm proxy for Mayor Hamilton.
Okay, then Penny Githens.
I'm Penny Githens, Monroe County Commissioner.
Okay, then Kent McDaniel.
Kent McDaniel here, representing Bloomington Transit.
Okay, and then Jason Banning.
Hello, Jason Bannock, representing Indiana University.
Okay, thank you, Jason. And that's all I have here.
I'm here.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kate. I'm sorry, Kate. You weren't on the initial. Okay. I apologize, Kate.
No
please.
worries. Kate Wiltz, County Council.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any others out there that I've missed?
Anyone here from City Council?
Steve's missing.
Okay, so thank you all. Do I hear a motion to approve today's agenda?
I motion to approve today's agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve today's agenda. Would you please call the roll?
Okay, Sarah Reiterband,
Yes.
Margaret Clemens,
Yes.
Pamela Samples,
Yes,
Nate Nickel,
Yes.
Chris Wallman,
Yes.
Scott Robinson,
Yes.
Penny Githens,
Yes.
Kent McDaniel,
Yes.
and Jason Bannock. Oh, Jason Bannock,
Yes.
and Kate Wiltz.
Yes.
Thank you. Unanimous. 1, 2,
Excellent.
3,
Thank you so
4,
much.
5, 6,
Have
10-0.
Has everyone reviewed the minutes? And if so, are there any additions or corrections to last month's meeting minutes? If there are none, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
It
I have
looks like
my hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see that. Go ahead.
Thank you. I noticed that the minutes omitted the discussion of metrics that Kate Wiltz brought up about concerning the survey and the study for transportation. And I think that that's important to include in the minutes.
Well, I can go back. I will have to review the tape to go back and do that. Normally what we do is we talk about the general topic and then we say discussion ensued.
I would just like it to be a part of the formal record. And by the way, Zoom is very convenient for providing more substantive minutes because there's a transcript that is available that can be printed at the end of each Zoom call. So, but that substantive discussion of the metrics is important. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a fairly substantive change to the minutes. So do we need to put those off to the next meeting for approval? We can't just say, okay, let's do that, you know.
I mean, that's a decision of the committee on whether they want to do that or how they wish to proceed.
Well, it's hard to approve the discussion without seeing it. That's my point.
Is there any harm in putting it off?
No. No, and I don't, I mean, myself, I don't even remember the metrics.
I move that we continue to the next meeting until the minutes can be corrected to include the substantive comments regarding the survey, the transportation survey that was included in our packet.
Okay, Margaret, that's cool. I'll second that.
Thank you.
I have a point of order, please.
Yes,
This debate is not about how staff needs to do the minutes. There is a recorded meeting that's available. CAPS keeps a record. If anybody wants to listen to the discussion, that's fine. I don't think the point of minutes is for us to read verbatim comments. It's to outline what has happened at the meeting, to record what actions were taken. I just don't think it's worth staff time to provide verbatim minutes. So I don't think this is the opportunity to debate that at this time.
I stand by my motion. And it's been moved and seconded.
Well, I did do the second, but I also agree we don't need verbatim minutes, but I think
I
this
actually
may be a little
seconded it.
different.
I think I seconded it, Kent, before you did, and I'll stand by that.
Okay, fine.
is there further discussion on this topic before we vote on the motion? And the motion being that we postpone these minutes until the metrics discussion can be included in the minutes from the last meeting.
Again, point of order, the motion, I believe, was to adopt the minutes. And then this, Margaret introduced a motion to add or do something else. Again, I think the motion on the table was to approve the minutes.
No,
So
the
that's the point of,
motion on the table was to discuss the minutes. Sorry.
the agenda says approval of minutes. A motion was made to approve the minutes.
Not yet.
Sarah, this is in your ball park here. You're the chairperson. Frankly, I don't care.
Sarah, you're muted.
Did anyone second the motion to approve the minutes?
No.
If it was never seconded, then indeed that motion is not on the table. So there is a motion on the table that has been placed and seconded. And that's what's under discussion now. We can vote on that and then go back, depending upon how this vote comes out, to either approve or disapprove the minutes. So that's, as far as I can tell from what has transpired so far, where we are.
Again, Madam Chair, I would have seconded the minute, but I was giving Ms. Clemens the benefit of the doubt, and she introduced a new motion. So I don't know if that's the correct procedure or not. I would have happily seconded the amendment to adopt the minutes.
I hear you, but we actually have so confusing. And we don't have Robert here to clarify his rules. So it sounds like there actually is a motion with a second. And I would just, it seems reasonable for us to just go ahead, deal with the fact that some of us believe that the minutes should include a further discussion despite discussion ensued, which means someone could go to the actual meeting online, listen to it, find out all of the details, or they can simply, we can revisit these minutes after we include something about the metrics that were being asked for. that, as I understand, is the essence of what we have to vote on at this point. Is that everyone else's understanding?
I made a motion to to amend the minutes. And because there was an invitation by the chair to discuss or amend the minutes. I made a motion to object to the way the minutes were presented and that requested that the discussion of the metrics of the survey that was conducted be included. And then I made a motion to continue the approval of the minutes until such a discussion could be included in the updated minutes. That motion was moved and seconded. And Madam Chair, if you would be so kind to either further my motion in the second or disallow it on some other technical grounds, I would be grateful.
I think that was what I just said, but is there further discussion about this issue? Or can we go ahead and vote on whether to continue these minutes until this metrics piece is included in the minutes?
Call the
Again,
question.
I think I understand the purpose of including the desire to include the discussion, but actually what the policy committee, the technical advisory committee, the citizen advisory committee will be approving and reviewing that document. I don't think the minutes are germane to having that discussion in there. That's the only reason I'm concerned about having staff start putting more verbatim minutes for the sake of having minutes, when we're actually, our job is to review documents and make recommendations. That's just all I'm concerned about, is creating a false expectation.
It sounds like, Scott, that you're saying that you would vote no. And so I think what we're leaving this at is whether you vote yes or no on the motion that's on the table. Yes, Scott. Are you wanting to say something else?
No, I'm good. I just, serving as Mpo staff before, I can tell you it's very time consuming to do minutes, regardless of what the thought might be about Zoom transcribing. It makes lots of errors. And again, I just think the purpose of the minutes is not for people to read verbatim comments of what people said. It's to understand what happened at the meeting and what actions and votes were taken. Again, the documents that this committee reviews and approves, that's what is important, not necessarily what is said at the meeting. That's just my opinion. Again, I just want to caution the policy committee on the direction you're giving staff to start including verbatim minutes. I don't think that's a wise use of time.
And frankly, my own opinion is that I agree with you, that it's only actions that really belong in the minutes, and that's anything substantive is important, that, things can be added that are minor, but I agree with you that verbatim discussion of anything is irrelevant to the purpose of the minutes. So, but that would be reflected in how you vote on the motion.
Sarah, this is Ken. I'd like to jump in and say, I agree with you and I agree with Scott. We don't need verbatim minutes. And I've always been opposed to making work for staff. Let's do what's important and significant and try and move on. So I'd like to move on. But in this case, if one of the policy committee members thinks that something should be mentioned, I don't believe she ever said it should be verbatim, then, it's okay with me. I'd frankly just like to get it over with and move on to the rest of the meeting.
Right, so I was asking whether there was further discussion so that we could actually vote on this and get on with the meeting, because we have a lot to cover.
Good. Good.
All right, so there is a motion to continue these minutes so that more detail could be provided in these minutes before they're voted on. All those in
First, I saw
favor-
Kate had her hand up. If that's right.
Yeah,
I can't see.
I was going to contribute to the discussion for just a moment, not trying to belabor the point. But I think that the reason that it would be appropriate for this particular discussion to be reflected in the minutes is that it did result in staff indicating they would take action. And I brought it up and I don't even remember exactly what it was that was said. And I don't need to, I can go back to the tape to see exactly what was said, and so can anybody. But it just should be mentioned that it was, discussed, and that, these were the concerns and these are how they're going to be addressed. Bam. It's really not, I don't think, Margaret, I don't want to put more words in her mouth. That's not my intent, but just since I was involved in the discussion, I do recall that the response was that action would be taken. So there's a reason for, in my opinion, delaying and having the minutes reflect this particular topic. That's it.
Anyone else? Okay. Again, there's a motion on the floor to continue these minutes until next month, where they can reflect a discussion of metrics in whatever form. And it's been seconded. So would you please call the roll?
Okay. Margaret Clemens.
Yes.
Okay. Pam Samples.
No.
Okay. Nate Nickel.
No.
Chris Wallman.
I'd like to abstain if possible.
Okay. Scott Robinson.
No.
Penny Githens.
Yes.
Kent McDaniel. Ken McDaniel.
Yes.
Kent, are you? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, Jason Vanek.
No.
Kate Wills.
Yes.
And Sarah Ryderban.
No.
Okay. I'm sorry, just a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no. And 1 abstention.
Okay.
A
So
motion to approve the minutes.
it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's
Okay.
been moved and second to approve the minutes from the April 9th meeting of the Policy Committee. Are there any corrections?
What?
Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
Well, I would suggest that we add that there was a discussion about some metrics. And it was about the survey methodology. That's all I remember right now. I don't remember much about the details, but that addition would require somebody to add it. And that's exactly what we just debated. And I'm confused.
No, we didn't debate that. So you're just asking that discussion of the metrics be added into the discussion ensued. You could even say discussion of metrics. I don't care. You're just asking for an addition of a couple of words to the minutes. Is that correct or not?
I don't know how many words it would be. It's essentially that the minutes need to reflect that this topic came up, it was discussed, and if there was an action agreed upon, that whether or not there was, that's all. I mean, it's not that big a deal. It just happened.
So do you want to actually give us that addition? Can you come together with a sentence? Like, does it say the topic of metrics arose and discussion ensued and staff said they would look into it? Is that what you wanted to say?
That's, I guess, better than what it has now. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be difficult because I don't really recall it. It just came up in this, today, right here, as I'm looking at it. I thought Margaret had a good point. I was like, oh yeah, we had that discussion. They said they would do something that seems good. I'm not really trying to be difficult, I swear. But you asked if there's an addition, that's a good addition. I still support it. But we already voted on this, I thought.
No, we haven't voted on the minutes. I asked if there was any addition to the minutes. And what I'm asking is, do you have a statement that should be in the minutes? What we voted on was whether to postpone the minutes because apparently it was understood that Margaret wanted the discussion itself included into the minutes. So I'm asking whether there is an actual addition, or do you simply want to say discussion ensued and staff said they would look into the metrics for the survey?
Sure.
Okay, so staff, would you please add to the
Yes.
minutes? Staff said they would look into the metrics for the survey.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, with that addition, it has been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion of the minutes from the last meeting? If not, would you please call the roll?
Okay. Margaret Clemens.
Without a substantive statement of what exactly was agreed upon, I cannot vote yes. So I must vote no.
Okay. Okay, Pam Samples.
Yes.
Okay, Made Nickel.
Yes.
Okay, Chris Wallman.
Abstain.
Okay, I'm sorry, just a second here. Scott Robinson.
Yes.
Okay, Penny Githens.
No.
Okay, Kent McDaniel.
Yes.
Okay, Jason Bannock.
Yes.
And Kate Wiltz. Kate Wiltz.
No.
And Sarah Ryderban.
Yes,
Okay, I'm sorry, just a second here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 yes. 1, 2, 3 no, 1 abstention. Motion passes.
okay. Thank you. The chair is not actually here this week. So we'll move on to the reports from officers and committees. The CAC met. They recommended approval of the TIP amendments that we will be hearing today. And they also looked at the crash report that we have and discussed it at quite some length. And that's it. Lou, you want to tell us about the TAC?
Yes, thank you, Sarah. Lou May, I'm the chair of the Technical Advisory Committee. The TAC also met last month and discussed the TIP amendments from Bloomington Transit that are before you today. And the TAC voted unanimously to recommend approval to the policy committee. That's all we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. Reports from the Mpo staff.
Okay, in your packet, we have a letter included in there from the director of the Indiana Department of Transportation from Erica Tate at Federal Highway Administration approving the fiscal year 2022 Unified Planning Work Program. And then we also included the final planning work program in your packet, so that way you can see the document in its entirety. We've since received notification from the Department of Transportation of an impending contract. We've signed that contract. That contract is working through the approval process at the Indiana Department of Transportation and also with the state of Indiana. And that's all I have on that one. Second item included in your packet is a very brief summary of the American Jobs Plan. This is pertinent to the state of Indiana. Source of this is the National Association of Regional Councils. You may want to scroll down there, Ryan, just a little bit. And it's just like I said, it's an Indiana specific summary. The next page down. Thank you, there you go. And this gives a report card for the state of Indiana for infrastructure. And this comes from the American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials and other officials involved in looking at infrastructure in Indiana. And that's just there for your information. The next item we have is the Mpos call for 2022-2026 Transportation Improvement Program call for projects. Staff, well, the deadline for that was the 15th of last month. The staff received approximately 22 applications from local public agencies. We received applications from Monroe County, City of Bloomington, Bloomington Transit, and Rural Transit. We did not receive any applications from IU Campus Bus or the town of Ellettsville. At the next meeting, the next TAC meeting, CAC meeting later this month, and in the policy committee meeting next month, we will present everybody with an entire list of all of the applications and show you what the proposed work items were, and then also what the associated costs are too. In the meantime, we must negotiate out what I would call fiscal constraint, because the applications that came in, the request for funds exceeded the available funds. And by statute, we must have a fiscally constrained transportation improvement program. And then also included in the packet is what I would call preliminary complete streets scoring. And this is for the new projects, the new non-transit projects. Transit projects are exempt from the complete streets policy, which was adopted in 2018. Well, last updated in 2018, actually. It was adopted somewhere around 2012. And then, I'm sorry, there's a memo in there too. Ryan, you may want to scroll up to the memo.
Oh.
I'm sorry. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, there we go.
There we go, yeah. There's an extensive memo in here on the applications received. There was one project for crosswalk safety improvements, a second project for downtown curb ramps, phase 4, another project for High Street intersection modernization multi-use path, Then another application for Old State Road 37 at Dillman Road, intersection improvement. And then the final application was for West Second Street modernization and safety improvements. And all three of these, the detail is here in the memorandum for you to read if you haven't consumed that already. And then farther down, following this memorandum, is what I would call the preliminary complete streets scoring. And the preliminary complete street scoring was done by Ryan and myself in consultation with the applications out there. I call these preliminary because we did not consult with the LPAs. We will consult with the LPAs later on to make sure that there isn't anything that we missed in that. And then those are there for your review. And then finally, the development timetable for this. We have, I don't know if that's included in back there or not. Verbally, I will tell you the development timetable is the draft transportation improvement program is under development right now. Ryan and I will have a draft transportation improvement program we will mail it out to the TAC and the CAC next Wednesday. It may be fiscally unconstrained. And then at the latter part of this month, those two committees will be reviewing the draft transportation improvement program. And then between the time of the TAC and the CAC meeting at the end of this month and prior to the policy committee meeting in June, we will develop a fiscally constrained transportation improvement program. And then we will ask the policy committee for approval to publish the document and submit the document in draft form to the Indiana Department of Transportation, Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration. And then in mid-June, we will conduct a legal advertisement for a 30-day comment period on the draft transportation improvement program. And then we will also conduct at least one public meeting via Zoom for any comments on the transportation improvement program. And that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions. Questions? No questions. Madam Chairman. I return.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a question. Don't you normally put the boat in there? Are we talking about the crash report, the tip, or the this document that you have the final unified planning work program? Which are we talking about all of it right now?
No,
actually, items C and D were accidentally flipped. So we talked about D, and then I'll go into C here after this.
So we're talking about D and not
Correct.
about A.
Correct.
Okay.
correct. The unified, I can back up here. Unified Planning Work Program was approved by the policy committee last month. We submitted that final document to the Indiana Department of Transportation, Federal Highway Administration, and Federal Transit Administration. They approved the document, issued a letter saying their approval, and then after that, the Indiana Department of Transportation submitted to us a contract for the work program to sign, which was signed, and we submitted that contract back to NDOT, and that contract is working its way through Indiana state government with the approval signatures. And the end result is that beginning on July 1st, we will begin work on the fiscal year 22 Unified Planning Work Program, which was approved by the policy committee last month.
Is it not customary to put the votes in favor and those opposed to that transportation document in the?
That was in the minutes. That was in the minutes for last month. Yes. Yeah, that was there. That was under old business last month. And the votes were 11-1 approved.
May I ask a question about the two projects? I can't tell exactly where the crosswalk safety improvement projects are.
The crosswalk safety improvements are within the city of Bloomington. That will be at various locations.
Sorry, I've got work going on here. Then if it's at various locations, how do you determine the crash locations versus improvement on infrastructure? I mean, how do you give these ratings if it's at various locations?
Well, I mean, since there was no specific location, then it does not appear in the top 50 crash report in the scoring if you look at the scoring, and therefore it received a 0.
But also, if there's no specific location, how do you indicate that it improves upon existing infrastructure? It goes both ways for me. So I'm not trying to be difficult. I just want to know where this is occurring.
No, I know. It improves on existing infrastructure because it's replacing existing infrastructure to meet ADA standards. In other words, the infrastructure still exists. It exists currently, and what it's doing is it's updating or modernizing those crosswalks that are in there from approximately 10 years ago and bringing those up to current standards. And it's all occurring within the existing right-of-way. There's no right-of-way take for any of this. I mean, does that make sense?
It makes sense, but it's just hard for us to, I mean, I don't have experience with doing these ratings. So
oh, sure.
I don't know how some of the evaluation is done. And so specificity helps me, that's all.
Yeah, like I said, Ryan and I did these based on the criteria. And then if there are questions from the LPAs, the applicants themselves, we will meet with the applicants and discuss that, and we can alter the scoring. This is all preliminary scoring. It's intended to give the policy committee, the technical advisory committee, and citizens advisory committee, give them what I would call an order of magnitude. In other words, how good is the project in relation to the criteria? It's not a one project against another type of competition. It's just in relation to the criteria itself. Does that answer your question?
I guess I just need to do deeper dives into some of this. Thank you, Patrick.
Well,
I'd like to follow up on a comment that I made 2 years ago about the kind of the safety of these crosswalks that are being constructed and engineered. And that has to do with the canyons through which a wheelchair must navigate. And I've reported in this committee that going forward in a wheelchair, it's very difficult sometimes to get over the buttons that exist between the high curbs that engineering has erected. And I have seen and witnessed, and I reported here at this committee a few years ago, and they promised to look into it, that a wheelchair on Walnut Street around, I think around First or Allen, had stopped traffic trying to navigate over those buttons and get through the narrow corridor of the canyons, and had to back up into oncoming traffic and reverse, and without a rear view mirror, had to navigate in between those high curbs. And it was a dangerous situation. And I was promised by this committee and by technical advisory that that would be looked into, and nevertheless, nothing but that type of canyon or crosswalk has been engineered since I made those comments. So I'd like the record to note that, and I'd like us to be more thoughtful about what we're doing and how we're spending money, especially for the purported purpose of serving differently abled people.
the staff, well, we don't design. I mean, we just facilitate federal funding for the projects. If you could give me specific location, we will pass that on to the engineering department and we'll file a U report.
I've done
For
that before. I've done that before. How many, I mean,
I'm sorry, if you could give us a location, we can check and see if a U report was filed and what action was taken. Because that's outside of the MPO's purview. That's within the purview of the city Board of Works.
I just can't approve funding for something that's going to engineer problems for disabled. So, okay, so that's my report. It's on Walnut Street around First, and they can look into it.
I'm sorry, the location is First and Walnut?
Yes.
Okay. I will make a U report
Thank
to
you.
the Board of Public Works, and they will contact you. This is a crosswalk. Okay. All right. Are there any other questions about the applications or the memorandum?
I do have a
Yes.
question.
Yes.
Looking back and kind of following up on what Penny was pointing out, I guess, and I know that I probably have been through this process before, but it's been a minute. You said this is a high level kind of scoring. Is there another round of scoring? Does that then involve other folks?
This is draft. It was completed by Ryan and myself.
Yeah.
And then these scores will be provided to the applicants, to the project applicants. Project applicants may want to make clarifications on some of these because a few of the criteria we don't know the answer to. And if we didn't know the answer to it, we placed a 0. So if anything, we've scored low on these. And these scores are just merely advisory. They give the applicant and they give the Technical Advisory Committee, Citizens Advisory and Policy Committee an order of magnitude for the projects. In other words, how does the project relate to the adopted Complete Streets policy? And those scores will show you. And it's impossible for any project to receive a perfect score. I'll give you that. Does that help?
That sounds like a challenge. It's impossible.
Well, I had an LPA say that they had a perfect score, and I beg to differ. That's it.
I bet. So if you have more projects submitted, then you can fund. Then obviously there's a little competition going on, even if you're hesitant to call it a competition. I get that. And I'm wondering then, so you said they have a chance to sort of protest, remonstrate, or whatever.
Well, they can add to the scoring, but in reality, it's a report. It's a report to the committees, is what it is. In the overall scheme of things, it doesn't determine a priority. It gives you a rank order, so to speak, but it doesn't favor one project over another.
So higher scores don't equal more likely to be done?
Well, that's up to the LPAs. The staff doesn't make that determination. Now, whenever there's a fiscal constraint issue, the parties involved, which the last time, 2 years ago, was the city of Bloomington, Monroe County, and Bloomington Transit all met and came to a consensus. And then since there are requests for more funds than there are available, and we're required to achieve fiscal constraint, the same issue will happen again, where it'll be Monroe County, City of Bloomington, and Bloomington Transit must meet and come to a consensus on what level of funding they're willing to accept for particular projects. So that way we can balance the budget.
Got it. Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Are there any additional questions? like I said, these are advisory, preliminary advisory.
If there are no further questions, then Ryan, you want to talk to us about the 50% 2020, 2016 crash report? Seems like it should be 2016, 2020. Anyway.
Yes, absolutely. And sorry for the switching of the order there,
Okay.
but
Yeah, that's my fault.
this is the exact same report I was going to talk about and see. And this is also the exact same report that was presented to the CAC and TAC a couple of weeks ago, just for consistency purposes. To be sure, since then, what has been worked on is, and is not 100% finalized, is crash rate, crash mode, meaning like numbers of crashes and rates and severity by mode, and then severity and intersection severity rates and rankings. So as Sarah mentioned, yes, this is only a 50% draft, as you'll see if you're reading through the first few pages of this document. But I'm going to focus a little bit more on the graphs themselves. Last time that the policy committee saw this, it was at more of like a 25% draft. So these numbers in here on the graphs that I'm presenting in this packet today are at 100% completed. That being said, these are the exact numbers for 2015 to 2019. And I guess I should note that we're going 2015 to 2019 because in the past we have done a 3-year crash report. Well, we have decided to move to a 5-year crash report because we think that it shows crash trends better. We like to, so we're going to in the future move to a 5-year crash report, and so here we go. If you have any questions, I don't care. We can talk about it during the presentation. Just feel free to raise your hand or say something out to me. That's totally fine with me. Okay, so this first one is number of crashes by time of day for these 5 years, and you can tell that our peak is at the evening rush with a spike around the lunch rush, and from the morning just continues to get higher on average if you're following this black dotted line. And then after the rush, it precipitously declines. The interesting thing to see here, as we'll see in some of the other graphs as well, is that the 2019 numbers are on average lower than the previous 4 years. And I think that that's interesting. And I mean, I think that's a great development. Okay, so that is all 5 years by themselves, and you can see that there's kind of a similar trend within or amongst the years. But putting them together, not a surprise, it kind of follows that exactly. So this is a cumulative number of crashes for those 5 years for each hour of the day. And so by time of the week, we can see that Sunday has the fewest number of crashes, whereas Friday has the most number of crashes. And just like before, we're seeing that 2019 on average has fewer crashes for every day of the week than the previous 4 years. And then just as before, here's the 5-year cumulative number of crashes by day of week, and it shows the exact same as the 5 lines and the trend line of the previous graph. Okay, so going into number of crashes by month, July has the fewest number of crashes on average, and October and November have the highest. And just as before, 2019 is lower for most months than each of the 4 previous years. And then putting those together, once again, is very similar, showing that July is the lowest and October as a month is the highest for this set of 5 years. Okay, so top crash locations. Some of these may come as a surprise and some of them, or most of them, may not. But what we did here is that we used a 5-year bar graph to show number of crashes per location. So as we can see that 10th and the bypass has the most number of crashes within this 5-year time frame, and State Route 37 and 3rd Street has the second over this 5-year time frame, and I-69 and Bloomfield Road has the third. It's interesting to point out that, for instance, if we're looking at State Route 37 and Vernal Pike, we have very few to now 0 crashes at this intersection now, because it is only an overpass and it is not an intersection anymore. These lower numbers, and like 2016, this was, I believe, probably the construction of I-69. And then representing this data in a little different way, with 2019 as the reference year, you can see this last column. This is the column that is the one that is declining for every year. And if we're looking at the top 20 crash locations and for the rank for this top, or for the last five years, we'll have 10th in the bypass again is number 1. 46 College Mall Road and 3rd Street is number 2 over this 5-year span, and number 3 is State Route 45, 46, and Walnut Street and College Avenue. So the bypass and Walnut. The interesting things to point out here, just like in the previous graph, is that, for instance, State Route 30 or Southold State Route 37 and Walnut Street had a lot of crashes during I-69, but is not within the top 10 intersections for this time frame. Okay, and so showing this data in table form now, we can see in this third column, this is the 5-year total number of crashes ranking. So we're talking about average number of crashes per 5 years. And if we jump over to this fifth column here, we can see if it's green, the intersection has been getting better from the previous crash report of 2014 to 2018, the previous 5-year, the previous 5 years to this current crash report. So green means that the intersection is improving, meaning fewer crashes. Red means that there are more crashes from the previous 5 years at those intersections, and yellow means that it's stagnating or staying about the same. Okay, so fatalities and fatal crashes per year. You can see in 2019, we had 5 fatal crashes, and the 3 years before that, we had more. But I included years even prior to that, 2013 and 2014, so we can have a longer trend. It's like we can see what is happening over a longer period of time. But from then, it is showing that we are having slightly more crashes every year, or crashes that result in fatalities every year. Okay, so getting into what causes those crashes for each year, we have listed what has caused each of those fatalities, but I have ranked those, or I put them all together for a 5-year total. And it shows that our top 2 fatal crash primary factors are running off the road to the right or driving left of center. And the third one is driving at an unsafe speed. Okay, now jumping into injuries and crashes that relate in injuries per year. It's great to see that we're having fewer number of crashes over the last 3 or 4 years. And that trend line of number of crashes that result in injuries is also declining. And I'm guessing that, and I haven't looked at 2020 all that much yet, and it could definitely change. But looking at these set of years compared to the data that was shown previously, with 2019 having fewer number of crashes by day and by month and by time of day, we're showing that our trend line is indeed showing that 2019 has the fewest number of crashes that result then in injuries as well. From what we know from 2020, that may not be, or that may not hold true, as we know that more or fewer vehicles have been on the road and speeds have increased, and we know that unfortunately fatalities are probably increasing as well for last year and earlier into this year. But for the set of data that is presented here, we're on a positive looking trend line here. And I guess that's all I have to show at the moment, but I will be happy to take any questions if there are any.
I've actually got a couple questions, couple comments, and a couple questions. One is, I haven't really done a deep dive into all the accident reports, but it does not surprise me, this is the comment, not a question, that the State Road 46, 10th Street bypass is a big accident provider. Because it's the most poorly designed intersection that I think I've ever seen. And also Pete Ellis and State Road 46, I hope we're gonna have some improvements there. That's gonna be a real big mess.
Yes, and it is, I mean, something to note that intersection is actually an MPO project, or it is in the tip, even though it's an NDOT project.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that. Okay, now the questions that I had was regards to roundabouts. I understand that the idea behind those is accidents tend to be less severe because you don't get the head on and you don't get the T-bones.
Right.
Have you looked into the data enough on this accident report or do we have enough data to indicate whether those roundabouts are safer or not? And then the other thing, my other question is, they look very dangerous and unfriendly to me for bicycles and pedestrians. So does the accident report back any of that up?
Okay. I guess just to jump into the
yeah, that's it. Those are my questions.
Yeah, thanks. No, I haven't done a deep dive into roundabout study yet. I mean, we all know that they're designed to be safer at somewhat either dangerous or high frequency intersections. But I have not looked into that yet. Some of these intersections within Bloomington and Monroe County, for instance, are quite new. So I don't know if we've done any studies on that as of right now. I'm not sure if Scott may have more information on that.
Well, Ryan, it's kind of scary going through some of those because
especially if you're a bicyclist or pedestrian sometimes.
But even in a car, a lot of people just don't understand how you're supposed to deal with it. So, I'm always
really signaling into it and signaling out of it. Right.
Yeah. I'd be interested to see what the results are, when we do more studies.
Oh, I would be too. And one thing that I'm interested in looking at is listing all of our roundabouts and comparing them to previous years when they were not roundabouts.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
And how the numbers have changed.
Thank you.
And I'm sure that they have, but we haven't looked into that quite yet.
I have a question for Ryan or Pat. Just the days of the week, is there any, obviously you kind of see it going up with the work week with crashes, but any summaries or ideas of why it peaks so much on Thursday, Friday, it's kind of pre-weekend, or any ideas why you see such a rise there?
I mean, based on the national data, this mirrors the national data. Everybody peaks on Friday, and that's most likely because people drive alone on Friday. They're less likely to carpool and ready to cut out for the weekend and or shopping trips or whatever. But this is consistent with what you see nationally.
Right, and just to go off of that is there are generally more trips done after working hours on Friday. And so people are going to more places. And so that probably is indicated.
Well, as long as I can remember, Friday, 5 to 6 p.m., it's always been the worst time to drive as far as these accident reports are concerned. It's always been that way. So be careful.
Right.
Has anyone ever done a study of whether there actually are more cars on the road on Fridays? It seemed to me for the last 40 or 50 years, no matter where I lived, that there are more cars on the road on a Friday, period, all day.
Well, that may go back to what we were mentioning before, is that
Single occupancy
people are
vehicle.
doing more trips on a Friday and are pairing trips together on Friday, as opposed to some of the other days of the week. And so people may be grocery shopping, or who knows what, where they're going to need a vehicle, or they're traveling farther, that kind of thing.
I'm wondering if in some iteration of this crash report, whether we could actually isolate out the roadways that the LPAs within this MPO have real influence over versus INDOT's, because when we look at the crash report, it's clear that most of our roadways, we actually have no influence on any of those intersections. So in some later version, will we be able to see our MPO influenced roadways separated out?
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. And we talked about that last month at the CAC meeting, was that we are going to take this and break it down per LPA. And so we're going to have a top 10 for Bloomington, a top 10 for Ellettsville, a top 10 for Monroe County, and then show it that way. So we'll be able to know in the future where our MPO dollars will make the most bang for its buck. And that's really the whole point of doing a crash report, really.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Other questions?
I just want to comment, that I'd like to thank Ryan for his great report, and that it is encouraging, and I really appreciate the detail and the way you presented it. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. There'll be more to come.
Yeah, I have one or two things, if it's possible.
Of course.
With the narrowing of East 3rd Street, State Route 46, going east out of town, I'd like for us to keep an eye on whether or not that either increases or decreases not only automobile accidents, but also accidents with bicycles. And just, for us to keep an eye on it. When I looked at these numbers, I actually went back and looked at when I-69 opened between Bloomington and Martinsville, and it actually was at the end of 2018. So it's really nice to see that we're seeing a drop because of having I-69 there. I know that there was a lot of opposition to it,
Right.
but it looks like it is saving lives. I would like to ask also on page 14 and 15 of the crash report that you indicate what on the report itself, what the green, yellow, and red mean, because that
Right.
was not clear to me when I read through it the first time at all. So I appreciate how it's presented, because that visual does make it very easy to make that comparison.
Thank you. Yeah, in the final draft, I'll put a little legend of what that means.
That would be much appreciated. And I think that what I really want to repeat what Ken said was that, we need to know more about the roundabouts. I lived in a country for more than 2 years where roundabouts were very common. And I feel like a lot of people here do not know how to use a roundabout properly. And it's hard to signal on such small roundabouts what you're doing. So perhaps we can be looking at ways to educate the public in a different way about the use of roundabouts. and how they can be really beneficial in terms of safety?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we'll look into that, and then also we'll keep an eye on the intersections at State Route 46 or 3rd Street, where that a new 3-lane out of town is, and that's not in this crash report because it's fairly new. What did that finish in 2020? I think. There are certainly some intersections on the top 50 here on this table that were along that, or that are on that stretch there. Let's see. Well, is there anything else I might be able to help answer?
If there are no further questions, then we can move on to the tip amendments. So does anyone have any further questions on the crash report? Okay, there is no old business to transact, so we'll move on to new business. Tip amendments.
Okay, we received two amendments for the fiscal year 2020-2024 Transportation Improvement Program. Thank you. First application is for Bloomington Transit bus stop improvements. This is safety, mobility, preservation, and maintenance type project for 2 transit stop access points and other infrastructure improvements depending on the assessed engineering needs. Federal funding on this is a total of $149,000. State match is $37,250. Total amount is $186,250. The second tip amendment we received a request was again from Bloomington Transit. This one is for the acquisition of 4 35-foot replacement electric vehicle buses. These are fleet replacement vehicles. This acquisition is consistent with the 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, where we would reduce carbon fossil type fuel buses, replace those with electric vehicles. Total cost on this federal funding, $3.2 million, local match $800,000. $4 million would be the total cost for this. I'm happy to take any questions anybody may have.
Patrick, if I could, I'd like to elaborate on both projects there.
Thank you. I didn't know you were still online.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
First of all, on the bus stop project, there has been a change on this project, so it's important for me to mention that. This was for a pending grant application for 5310 Federal Transit Administration funding. The grant application was pending with NDOT, and we've just recently learned that in order to proceed with this project, we're going to have to do some advanced environmental work on the project before the grant can be approved on this. So our plan is to go ahead and proceed with that environmental work, resubmit the grant application probably for the next round of 5310 funding that will be available from NDOT, and then include the project in a future tip, most likely the 2022 tip. So this project, I don't need any action on this proposed tip amendment as the project has changed. The second project is for an approved grant in the last round of bus and bus facility competitive FTA funding. Bloomington Transit applied for the replacement of 4 35-foot diesel buses with battery electric buses. And I'm pleased to report that we were successful in winning that grant from the feds in the amount of $3.2 million with an $800,000 local match. These would be our third, fourth, fifth, and sixth electric buses. We already have 2. The first one has been delivered. The second one should be delivered any day now. and we should have those in service. But so we're looking to put this approved grant in the FY 2021 TIP. Again, the total amount is 3.2 million federal, $4 million total. So glad to take any questions or comments that anyone may have.
Sarah, you're muted.
Yeah, so Lou, if I understand you correctly, you all are withdrawing the bus stop improvement TIP amendment, and we will only be voting on the buses.
That's correct.
Okay. So I'm wondering whether there is a motion to approve the TIP amendment for 4 35-foot replacement electric buses.
I'll move that, Sarah.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
I'll second.
It's been seconded twice now. So, are there any questions for Lou or any comments? Anything anyone wants to say about this particular TIP amendment?
Clarification, who made the second?
I did the first time.
Okay, I had you, but I just wanted to make sure because I was going by voice, not photo. Okay, thank you so much.
I have to confess, I'm interested in something, and this is not relevant to that particular motion, but Lou, what were the environmental concerns about the bus stops?
Well, anytime you're using federal funding for a construction project like this, Kent, you have to go through the federal NEPA process to ensure that you're not having an adverse environmental impact. And that will take a few months. We'll have to hire probably an engineering consultant to go through that NEPA process on both of these bus stops. And the goal is you're trying to arrive at what's called a categorical exclusion. And then once you have that, the project is eligible for federal funding and we can resubmit it there. So again, our plan is to go forward with the NEPA work, acquire the categorical exclusion that we're searching for, then resubmit the application. And I think there's a reasonably good chance that it will be approved by NDOT on the next round of funding.
It used to be a lot easier to build a bus stop.
Yeah, it used to be, for example, passenger shelters now also have to go through same kind of environmental assessment just to put a federally funded passenger shelter at a bus stop now. So, that's another consideration for projects like this.
Yeah, well, just one more question. When you're talking about a categorical exclusion, you have to get one for every bus stop, or does that apply to the category of?
I think it would apply to both stops in this case.
Yeah, it's still a lot of work. Thank you, Lou.
Are there other questions or comments? If not, then would you please call the roll?
Okay, Margaret Clements,
Yes.
Pam Samples,
Yes.
Nate Nickel,
Yes.
Chris Wallman,
Yes.
Scott Robinson,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Penny Githens,
I'm going to abstain simply because I don't know enough about this issue.
okay. I'm sorry, Ken McDaniel,
Yes.
Jason Bannock,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Kate Wiltz,
Yes.
and Sarah Ryderban.
Yes.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 yes, and 1 abstention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So that's the end of business. Are there any topics that anyone has for future agendas that they wish to bring forth?
I have one, and it has to do with community engagement in general and the way surveys are being conducted. I'm active on social media, and a lot of people all over town are commenting in so many fora that their voices feel excluded. And I remain concerned about the adequate representation of our fellow community members. Frankly, the community was outraged with the UDO process, and there were more than 700 signatures on a petition to enable more community participation in the Unified Development Ordinance because the comprehensive plan was not adhered to. And there were also 590 signatures on a petition that of property owners who wanted to participate more wholeheartedly in planning processes. And if the city is not going to abide by its comprehensive plan, and if the opportunities for community feedback and input are constrained, I wonder what kind of representative democracy we have here. I think that we have to be worried about it as far as the annexation process is concerned, and we have to worry about it as far as our overall planning is concerned. I think the public feels disengaged and irrelevant to and ignorant, actually, of the actual plans of the city of Bloomington and Indiana University. And I think that everyone would like more transparency in order to promote more trust. And with transportation and with our group in particular, we have a policy organization that I think should be concerned about this, about the lack of community input, about the lack of citizen engagement, about the inclusion of various voices and the exclusion of various voices. So I'm raising it here because it's the most critical issue that our community is facing. Thank you.
Thank you. As chair of the Citizens Advisory Committee for this MPO, I appreciate that advertisement. People are always welcome to become part of the Citizens Advisory Committee, and we have a very vocal and engaged group that meets in the CAC, and everyone within the MPO is welcome to those meetings. And that next meeting will occur virtually, unfortunately, on May 26th at 6:30 p.m. The same day at 10 a.m., the Technical Advisory Committee will be meeting. And the Policy Committee will meet once again on June 11th here virtually at 1:30 p.m. If there are no objections, then I will certainly entertain a move to adjourn.
I have one other thing.
Yes,
to
Penny?
add. I'm sorry. It looks like that we're going to have to develop some kind of policy with regard to meetings after the governor's emergency order has been lifted, such that we can't continue complete virtual meetings after this. And I know the city's going to have to do one. The county's in the process of getting all of our different boards and commissions to do that. And so I'm not sure what the exact mechanism will be for the MPO to do that. But in general, at least once the emergency order is lifted, and as long as there's no emergency order present within the county, at least 50% of the participants will have to be present in person. And then there are guidelines for when everybody has to be there and guidelines for the number of meetings that a person must attend in person as well.
Thank you for that. And as I understand it, the county is still under a lockdown, so that, it so far does not apply to us. But yes, as things are lifted, things will change. And I look forward to meeting with other vaccinated humans in person.
Well, at
Thanks
this
to our
point, we're,
CDC.
yeah, at this point, we're under the state's emergency order. And so that's scheduled right now to end at the end of this month. And so we'll also have to figure out different ways of noticing meetings if they're going to be both in person and virtually, is my understanding. So it just complicates things for everyone at this point.
Of course. Well, it's been an interesting times. I will entertain a motion to adjourn unless anyone else has anything to add.
I move we adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
Second it.
All right. Sounds probably unanimous. Thank you all.